I had been home for less than 30 seconds when I found my 8-year-old daughter lying face down on the hallway floor. Her backpack rested beside the stairs, one sneaker had come off, and her right hand was trapped beneath her chest. "Tessa?" I called. She didn't move. My suitcase struck the hardwood as I dropped beside her and turned her onto her side. For one terrifying second, I couldn't tell whether she was breathing. "Tessa, sweetheart, open your eyes." Nothing. Then I felt the faintest breath touch my hand. Behind me, a glass clicked against the kitchen counter. My wife, Zena, stood in the doorway, watching us with a calm expression that frightened me more than panic would have. Please, before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from today. My name is Kevin Wood. I was 41 and made my living negotiating corporate acquisitions. I knew how to recognize evasions and the small changes in a person's face when the truth became inconvenient. But beside my daughter in our Naperville home, I realized I might have missed the most important warning signs of my life. I wasn't supposed to return from Denver until Sunday. The negotiations ended 3 days early, so I changed my flight without telling anyone. I wanted to surprise Tessa. Instead, I found her on the floor. I dialed 911. "What happened?" I demanded. Zena folded her arms. "She's fine, Kevin. She is unconscious. She's being dramatic." We argued about her tablet, and she threw one of her fits. Tessa was quiet and careful. I had never seen her behave that way, and no tantrum ended with slow, shallow breathing. The emergency operator answered, and I gave our address. Zena stepped closer. "Don't make this into something it isn't. My daughter won't wake up." "Lower your voice. You'll scare her." The absurdity of that sentence stopped me. "How long has she been here?" Zena glanced toward the clock. "Maybe 10 minutes. And you didn't call anyone?" "She does this for attention when you aren't here." Something cold moved through me. "She's done this before?" Her eyes tightened. "That isn't what I said." The operator asked me to monitor Tessa's breathing. I counted each weak breath aloud while Zena paced. She never knelt beside Tessa or touched her. "Was she sick today?" I asked. "No." "Did she fall?" She got upset. I touched Tessa's forehead. Her skin felt cool and damp. "Did she take any medicine?" Zena stopped pacing. For the first time, her calm mask slipped. "Why would you ask that?" "Because she's 8 and unconscious. There's allergy medicine upstairs, but she knows not to touch it." I hadn't mentioned allergy medicine. Neither had the operator. Before I could ask why it came to her mind, sirens sounded at the end of our street. Zena looked toward the windows and then at her clothes. "I should change before we go." I stared at her. "Paramedics are coming, and you're worried about changing?" "Someone needs to stay calm." "This isn't calm, Zena. This is wrong." A hard knock sounded. I shouted for them to enter. 2 paramedics hurried into the hallway, while a third carried equipment. The older paramedic introduced himself as Reyes and knelt beside Tessa. His partner fitted an oxygen mask over her face. "Any medical conditions?" Reyes asked. "None." "Allergies?" "No known allergies." "Current medications?" "None." "She sometimes takes allergy medicine," Zena interrupted. Reyes looked up. "What kind?" "Something over the counter." "How much did she have today?" "I don't know." Reyes held her gaze, then looked around the hallway. His eyes moved from the staircase to the kitchen doorway, and finally settled on me. "You live here, sir?" "Yes." "You're her father?" "Yes." He studied my face. "Have we met before?" "No." Reyes looked down at Tessa, then back at me. "Are you certain?" My stomach tightened. "I'm certain." "Why?" He didn't answer. His partner called out Tessa's blood pressure, and they prepared the stretcher. As they lifted her, her eyelids fluttered without opening. Zena picked up her purse. "I'll drive separately." "Why?" "I need to change." Reyes glanced at her, and something passed across his face. Recognition, concern, or both. I followed the stretcher outside. Just before I climbed into the ambulance, Reyes placed a hand on my arm. "Mr. Wood, I need to speak to you privately." I looked back. Zena stood inside the doorway, watching us. "What is it?" Reyes lowered his voice. "You said you've never met me. I haven't." "Maybe you haven't," he said, looking toward Tessa, inside the ambulance. But I've been inside this house before. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood him. What do you mean you've been inside my house before? Reyes glanced toward the open front door. Zena was still standing there with her purse against her chest, close enough to watch us, but too far away to hear. 6 months ago, he said quietly. We responded to this address for an unresponsive child. The noise around me seemed to disappear. I could see his partner securing Tessa inside the ambulance, but all I heard was the word unresponsive. You're mistaken. March 18th, late afternoon. A 7-year-old girl named Tessa Wood. I knew exactly where I had been that day. Houston. A 4-day acquisition meeting I had nearly canceled because Tessa had developed a cold. Zena had insisted I go. She sent me pictures of Tessa smiling over breakfast and told me everything was fine. What happened to her? I asked. She was extremely drowsy. Her breathing was slow, and she was confused when she regained consciousness. We transported her to Edward Hospital. My mouth went dry. No. If my daughter had been taken to a hospital, someone would have called me. Reyes didn't look away. Were you contacted? Not once. Behind us, the front door opened wider. Zena stepped onto the porch, now wearing a jacket over the same workout clothes. Kevin, are you coming? Neither of us answered. Reyes lowered his voice further. The adult present told us you were overseas and couldn't be reached. I stared at him. I wasn't overseas. I was in Houston, and my phone was on all day. His expression hardened. I can only tell you what we were told. Why was Tessa unconscious? The suspected cause was excessive antihistamine exposure. The words struck like a physical blow. Zena had mentioned allergy medicine before anyone asked about it. Was it accidental? At the time, we were told she had gotten into the medication herself. Once she stabilized, the hospital handled the follow-up. She was 7. How does a 7-year-old take enough medicine to stop responding, get carried out by an ambulance, and then come home without her father hearing one word about it? Reyes paused. That is a question you need to ask after your daughter is safe. Zena started walking toward us. Every instinct told me to turn around and demand the truth. But 15 years of negotiations had taught me that when someone didn't know what I knew, giving away my position too early only helped them prepare a better lie. By the time she reached us, I had forced the anger from my face. What are you two talking about? She asked. Tessa's condition, I said. Zena looked from me to Reyes. Then why are you whispering? Reyes answered before I could. We need to leave now. Of course. Zena adjusted her purse. I'll follow in my car. Reyes nodded toward the ambulance. Her father can ride with her. Stepfather? He asked. Father? I said. Stepdaughter. Zena corrected at the same moment. The word came too quickly, as though separating herself from Tessa mattered even now. I climbed into the ambulance and took my daughter's hand. Zena remained beside the curb, watching the doors close. As we pulled away, Tessa's eyelids fluttered, but she did not wake. Reyes checked the monitor, then adjusted the oxygen line. Can you tell me anything else about March? I asked. Not without the official record. Do you remember who was in the house? He hesitated. Your wife. Anyone else? Not that I saw. Did Tessa say anything? She was barely responsive. When she woke, she seemed frightened and kept asking whether she had done something wrong. I looked down at my daughter. Even unconscious, her fingers were curled inward as though she were trying to make herself smaller. Did my wife stay with her at the hospital? She arrived separately. How long afterward? Reyes studied me before answering. Long enough that the emergency staff asked where she was. A chill moved through me. Tonight, Zena had also wanted to change before following us. The same delay, the same medicine, the same unconscious child, and both times I had been away. At the emergency department, doctors rushed Tessa through a pair of double doors. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me and promised someone would update me as soon as she was stable. Zena had not arrived. I stood alone beneath the fluorescent lights, replaying every answer she had given me. She does this when you aren't here. There's allergy medicine upstairs. Don't make this into something it isn't. Those sentences no longer sounded careless. They sounded prepared. A registration nurse approached with a tablet and asked for our insurance information. As I opened the insurance portal on my phone, a thought took shape. Zena could hide a conversation. She could lie about a phone call and erase a message. But an ambulance created a dispatch record. A hospital created a medical record. Medication created pharmacy claims. 6 months earlier, something had happened to Tessa, and Zena had hidden it from me. This time, before she had a chance to rewrite the story, I was going to find every trace she had missed. The insurance portal loaded before Zena reached the hospital. I searched Tessa's name and found the March 18th emergency claim exactly where Reyes said it would be. Ambulance transport, toxicology screening, emergency treatment, every detail carried my daughter's name and our home address. Zena was listed as the responsible adult. I stared at the screen, trying to understand how an entire hospital visit had disappeared from my life. Then I noticed another unfamiliar claim beneath it. May 6th, a walk-in clinic across town. Below that was a pharmacy charge from the same afternoon. I scrolled farther and found another visit in July, then an urgent care claim in September. None came from Tessa's pediatrician, and none had ever been mentioned to me. I counted 7 unfamiliar medical events over 18 months. Some involved dizziness or nausea. Others mentioned unusual drowsiness, confusion, or altered awareness. I opened my work calendar and checked the first date, March 18th. Houston, May 6th, Denver, July 22nd, London, September 14th, New York. My pulse quickened as I compared the remaining dates. Every incident had happened while I was traveling. 7 medical events, 7 absences. 7 times Zena had been the adult caring for Tessa. I forced myself to consider innocent explanations. Perhaps Tessa became anxious whenever I left. Perhaps Zena had believed the visits were too minor to interrupt my work. But that possibility weakened when I opened the pharmacy records. The same name appeared repeatedly, diphenhydramine, a sedating antihistamine. Different dates, different clinics, the same medication. One prescription came from a walk-in clinic 12 miles from our home. Another had been filled near Zena's gym. A third claim showed children's liquid allergy medicine purchased hours before Tessa was treated for extreme drowsiness. I knew very little about medicine, but I understood patterns. My career depended on placing separate facts beside one another until the truth became visible. Zena had kept each event isolated behind a different date, provider, and business trip. On my screen, they were no longer separate. I took screenshots of every claim and saved copies before anything could disappear. Then I searched the messages Zena had sent during those trips. On several of the same nights, she had told me Tessa was tired and had gone to bed early. After the March ambulance visit, Zena had sent me a photograph of Tessa sitting at the kitchen table with her eyes half closed. The message beneath it read, "Someone misses her daddy." I had replied with a heart, never knowing my daughter had been taken to the hospital hours earlier. A nurse appeared through the emergency doors. "Mr. Wood?" I stood immediately. "Is Tessa awake?" "She's stable, but she remains unusually drowsy. Dr. Fountain needs to speak with you." The doctor met me in a small consultation room. "Her breathing has improved," he said. "We're waiting for toxicology, but her symptoms are consistent with significant antihistamine exposure. Could she have taken it accidentally?" "It's possible. We need to know what medication was available and how much she may have consumed." I placed my phone on the table. "What if this has happened before?" Dr. Fountain looked at me. I showed him the March emergency claim and explained what Reyes had revealed. Then I showed him the other 6 events and my travel calendar. His expression grew more serious with every date. "You knew about none of these?" "Not one." "Who supervised Tessa while you were away?" "My wife." "Every time?" I nodded. He enlarged the pharmacy history. "These medications came through several providers." "That means no single doctor may have seen the complete pattern. Do you think someone chose different clinics deliberately?" "I'm not making an accusation," he said. "But this history requires immediate review." He told me that someone from the hospital's child protection team would speak with me. Until the cause was understood, only hospital staff were to give Tessa food, drinks, or medication. "Do you believe she's in danger?" I asked. Dr. Fountain chose his words carefully. "I believe an unconscious 8-year-old with repeated unexplained medical events needs protection while we determine what happened." After he left, I wrote every incident on a legal pad. Beside each date, I added my location, the clinic, and the medication involved. When I finished, the page no longer looked like a collection of accidents. It looked like a schedule built around my absence. At 2:06 in the morning, the elevator doors opened. Zena stepped out wearing a cream blouse, dark trousers, and fresh makeup. She looked more prepared for an appointment than for a medical emergency. "How is she?" "Stable." Zena reached for my arm, but I stepped away and locked my phone before she could see the timeline. "Did the doctor say what happened?" she asked. "They're still running tests." She studied my face, trying to determine how much I knew. I gave her nothing. Zena still believed every incident remained separate. She had no idea I had just placed all 7 on the same page. Dr. Fountain approached us before Zena could ask another question. "Mr. and Mrs. Wood?" "I'm her stepmother," Zena corrected immediately. The doctor acknowledged her, with a nod. "We have preliminary toxicology results. Tessa has a substantially elevated level of diphenhydramine in her system." I watched Zena, instead of him. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her purse. For a fraction of a second, there was no surprise on her face, only calculation. Then her eyes widened. She must have gotten into the medicine cabinet again. The word seemed to hang between us. Again. One word, one mistake. I turned toward her slowly. "Again?" Zena's expression froze. "What?" "You said she must have gotten into the medicine again." "It's just an expression." "No, it isn't." "Has this happened before?" She glanced at Dr. Fountain, then softened her voice. "Maybe once. I don't remember exactly. 6 months earlier, an ambulance had carried Tessa from our house after excessive antihistamine exposure. Zena had followed her to the hospital, signed the paperwork, and told the paramedics I was overseas. Now she stood beside me, pretending the event was too minor to remember. "A child became unconscious," I said. "How could you forget that?" Zena's eyes sharpened. "Because, unlike you, I handle every little crisis when you're away. They start blending together after a while." Dr. Fountain remained calm. "Where is the medication kept?" "In the upstairs bathroom." "Is the cabinet locked?" Zena hesitated. "No, but Tessa knows she isn't allowed to touch it." "How much was in the bottle?" "I don't count every teaspoon." "When did you last see it?" "This morning, maybe." Each answer gave less information than the question requested. I recognized the technique because I had heard it across conference tables for years. Sound cooperative, provide nothing, and make the person asking feel unreasonable. Dr. Fountain wrote something down. "Has Tessa ever deliberately taken medication?" "Not deliberately," Zena replied. "Then what happened the previous time?" I asked. Her head snapped toward me. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm asking about my daughter. And I'm telling you she becomes impulsive when you aren't around." There it was again. Zena was not merely explaining an accident. She was constructing a version of Tessa that could be blamed for it. "What do you mean by impulsive?" Dr. Fountain asked. "She gets emotional. She refuses to listen. Sometimes she throws things or lies for attention." None of that described the child I knew. Tessa apologized for speaking too loudly at dinner. She asked permission before taking food from her own refrigerator. Yet Zena spoke as if she had been managing a dangerous child for years. "Has the school reported this behavior?" the doctor asked. "Not that I know of." "Her pediatrician?" "No." "Has anyone besides you witnessed it?" Zena crossed her arms. "Kevin travels constantly. He doesn't see what I deal with." Her answer was meant to weaken me, but it exposed the pattern more clearly. The behavior existed only when I was away, just like the medical emergencies. "We'll need the bottle and a complete list of every medication in the house," Dr. Fountain said. "Is all that really necessary?" Zena asked. "Tessa is stable now." "Yes," he replied, "it is necessary." For the first time, her confidence faded. A nurse approached and said Tessa was awake enough for one parent to sit with her. Zena stepped forward immediately. I'll go, I said. She stared at me. "Kevin, she's used to me handling these situations when you travel." The sentence struck harder than she intended. These situations. Not this situation. She had just admitted there had been more than one. "I'm not traveling now," I said. Zena moved closer and lowered her voice. "You're upset, and you'll frighten her." My daughter woke up in a hospital. She needs her father. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then Dr. Fountain opened the door and gestured for me to follow. As I walked away, I felt Zena watching me. She knew she had said too much, but she didn't know how much I had already discovered. She still believed she was protecting one forgotten incident. She had no idea I had found 7. Tessa looked impossibly small beneath the hospital blanket. A monitor blinked beside her bed, and an IV line disappeared beneath a strip of white tape on her arm. When I sat down, her eyes opened halfway. "Daddy, I'm right here." Her fingers found mine and held on. "Am I in trouble?" The question broke something inside me. "No, sweetheart. You are not in trouble." Zena said I was bad. "You're not bad." Tessa looked toward the door as if she expected Zena to walk through it. "Is she here?" "She's outside, but she isn't coming into this room right now." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. Dr. Fountain had warned me not to overwhelm her with questions, so I stayed quiet until her breathing became steady. After several minutes, I said, "I need to ask you one thing. If you don't want to answer, you can tell me to stop." Tessa nodded. "Do you know how the medicine got into your body tonight?" Fear appeared in her face immediately. Her fingers tightened around mine. "It wasn't medicine, Daddy. What was it?" She lowered her voice to a whisper. "Zena calls it my sleepy drink." For a moment, I couldn't speak. "What does the sleepy drink look like?" "Sometimes it's pink. Sometimes it looks like water." "Who gives it to you?" Her eyes moved toward the door again. "Zena." Anger rose through me so quickly that I had to look away. But Tessa did not need an angry negotiator searching for a confession. She needed her father to make the room feel safe. I softened my voice. "You haven't done anything wrong. I'm only trying to understand what happened." "She said you'd be mad." "At you?" Tessa nodded. "She said you don't like problems when you're working." I brought her hand to my chest. "Listen to me. Nothing you tell me will make me angry with you. Promise?" "I promise." She watched my face for several seconds before continuing. "Zena gave her the drink after school whenever I was away, but not during every trip." "When does she give it to you?" I asked. "Mostly when her friends come over." "What happens after you drink it?" "My legs feel funny. Everything gets slow." "Slow how?" Tessa searched for the words. "Like the whole world is underwater. I can hear people, but they sound far away." She said Zena would lead her upstairs and tell her to stay in her bedroom until the guests left. Sometimes Tessa remembered lying on the bed. Other times, she woke after dark without knowing how she got there. "Did you ever ask what was in the drink?" "Once." "What did Zena say?" "She said it helped me calm down because I'm difficult when you leave." "You are not difficult." Tessa stared at the blanket. "She says I ruin things. She says her friends don't want a kid listening to them." I remembered the medical dates on my phone. On several of those evenings, Zena had told me she was hosting friends or attending neighborhood meetings at home. "Did her friends see you drink it?" "No. She gives it to me before they come." "Did anyone ever come into your room?" Tessa shook her head. The door was locked. My stomach tightened. Locked from which side? The hallway side. I forced myself not to react. "What happened if you called for help?" She turned the television louder downstairs. Tessa's voice began to tremble. I stopped asking questions and told her she could rest, but she kept talking as if a door had finally opened. The first time, Zena had mixed the drink with fruit punch and called it a special treat. When Tessa woke up sick, Zena told her she had eaten too much candy. After another incident, Tessa vomited and became frightened. Zena warned her that if she told me, I would stop traveling, lose my job, and blame Tessa for costing us the house. "I didn't want you to lose everything," she whispered. "Sweetheart, my job and this house are adult responsibilities. You could never cause us to lose them by asking for help." Tears filled her eyes. "She said you married her because you needed someone to take care of me. She said if I made things hard, you might choose her instead." I moved my chair closer. "There is no choice. You are my daughter. Protecting you is my responsibility, and no one can change that." Tessa began crying without making a sound. I held her carefully, avoiding the IV line, and felt how fiercely she had been carrying a secret no child should have understood. "Why didn't you tell me when I called?" I asked gently. She stayed close when we talked. "If I said something wrong, She took the phone away. Did she ever hurt you for trying? Tessa hesitated. She didn't hit me. She squeezed my arm and said, accidents happen when children tell lies. I felt her body stiffen, so I stopped. You never have to drink anything she gives you again. What if she gets mad? That is not your problem anymore. Are you going to tell her what I said? I'm going to tell the doctors whose job is to keep you safe. We will not confront her alone. Tessa leaned back against the pillow. Will you stay? I'm not leaving. Her eyes slowly closed, but her hand remained wrapped around two of my fingers. I sat beside her until she fell asleep. Then I pressed the nurse call button and asked for Dr. Fountain. I repeated Tessa's words exactly, without adding my assumptions or anger. Sleepy drink, pink or clear, given when I traveled, a locked bedroom, and threats that made her afraid to tell me. Doctor. Fountain listened in silence before calling the hospital's child protection specialist. When he finished, he looked at me carefully. Mr. Wood, do not confront your wife. Preserve everything you found, and let us document Tessa's disclosure properly. I looked through the glass panel toward Zena in the hallway. She was sitting with her phone, still believing she could explain everything away. I understand, I said. This was no longer only my suspicion. My daughter had finally spoken, and this time, adults were going to believe her. I left Tessa's room shortly before 6 in the morning and found Zena asleep in a chair at the end of the hallway. Her purse rested against her leg, and her phone remained in her hand. I wanted to wake her and demand the truth, but Dr. Fountain's warning stopped me. If Zena knew what Tessa had revealed, she could erase messages, remove medication, or prepare a new explanation. I walked into an empty waiting room and called my executive assistant, Renee. I need my complete travel history for the last 24 months, I said. Flights, hotels, expense reports, meeting dates, and HR confirmation. When do you need it? Today. She heard the urgency in my voice and agreed, without asking why. I opened a spreadsheet and created 6 columns. Date, my location, medical provider, symptoms, medication, and responsible adult. The first entry was March 18th, Houston. Emergency transport, altered consciousness, diphenhydramine exposure, Zena Wood. I entered the remaining 6 events one by one. Different clinics appeared, but the symptoms and medication kept repeating. More importantly, Zena's name appeared as the responsible adult every time. At 7:12, Renee sent my verified travel calendar. I placed it beside Tessa's insurance history. The overlap was exact. 7 medical events, 7 business trips. 7 times Zena had been alone with my daughter. I searched my messages from each date. On the night of the March ambulance visit, Zena had written, Tessa went to bed early. Everything is fine. After the September urgent care claim, she had sent, girls' night went well. Tessa slept through everything. I remembered Tessa saying the sleepy drink usually appeared when Zena's friends came over. The message no longer sounded harmless. I saved screenshots of every relevant text, photograph, and call log. Then I contacted the ambulance service. They could not release the full March report immediately, but they confirmed the incident number and the name of the responding paramedic, Daniel Reyes. I added both to the timeline, so investigators could obtain the official record. At 8:34, Zena called. Where are you? Inside the hospital. Did Tessa say anything? The question came too quickly. She was tired. A brief silence followed. Did she mention the medicine? Why would she? I asked. Zena recovered immediately. Because the doctors need to know she took it herself. They're documenting everything. Kevin, stop making one childish mistake sound like a criminal investigation. I wrote her sentence down word for word. We'll talk later. I ended the call before my anger could reveal what I knew. At 10:15, a hospital caseworker named Joyce Tanner met me in a private room. She had already reviewed Dr. Fountain's notes and Tessa's initial disclosure. Do not ask Tessa to repeat her story, she said. Repeated questioning can frighten her and interfere with a formal interview. I understand. Show me what you found. I placed the timeline in front of her. Joyce compared my travel records with the medical claims. She examined the repeated pharmacy charges, the March incident number, and Zena's messages. Her expression became more serious with every page. You knew about none of these events? Not one. And Zena supervised Tessa every time? Yes. I explained what Reyes remembered and showed her the photograph Zena had sent hours after the concealed ambulance visit. Joyce studied the image of Tessa sitting at the kitchen table with heavy eyes. One unexplained overdose can be an accident, she said. 7 episodes involving similar symptoms, repeated medication, the same caregiver, and the same absent parent form a pattern. What happens now? We verify everything independently. We obtain the ambulance and medical records, contact the providers, and arrange a proper interview with Tessa when her doctors approve it. Can I take her home? Joyce looked directly at me. Not if Zena can reach her there. The answer made the danger feel immediate. What do you need from me? Do not confront your wife. Do not search accounts you have no legal right to access. Preserve what you already found and let us collect the rest through official channels. I will. Joyce gathered copies of the timeline, then paused at the door. These incidents remained hidden because they happened separately. You changed that by putting them together. After she left, I looked at the 7 lines on the spreadsheet. For 18 months, Zena had controlled the story by waiting until I traveled and treating every emergency as an isolated mistake. Now the dates, medication, messages, and medical claims were visible on one page. I no longer needed Zena to admit what she had done. I needed enough verified evidence that no lie she invented could make the pattern disappear. By the following morning, Joyce Tanner no longer called what happened to Tessa an incident. She called it a pattern. The hospital had confirmed the elevated diphenhydramine level, and the ambulance service had verified Reyes's response 6 months earlier. The March report showed that Zena had told paramedics I was overseas and unavailable. My employer's records proved I had been in Houston with an active phone the entire day. 2 of the walk-in clinics also confirmed treating Tessa while Zena was present. Neither clinic had received her complete medical history, so each provider had believed it was handling an isolated event. At 9:20, Joyce called me while I sat beside Tessa's hospital bed. Kevin, Child Protective Services has elevated this to a priority investigation. I moved into the hallway. What does that mean? It means continued contact with Zena is being treated as a potential safety risk while we investigate. Through the glass, I watched Tessa coloring a house beneath an enormous yellow sun. Can you keep Zena away from her? The hospital can restrict visitors while Tessa remains here. Protecting her after discharge will require additional legal steps. Tell me what to do. Joyce explained that a trained child interviewer would speak with Tessa once her doctor approved it. I was not allowed in the room because even a supportive parent could unintentionally influence a child's answers. She may become frightened, I said. The interviewer will stop if Tessa becomes distressed. The purpose is not to force a disclosure. It is to let her speak in her own words. That afternoon, Tessa agreed to the interview. I waited outside with Dr. Fountain while Joyce observed through the appropriate channel. 40 minutes later, Joyce returned, carrying a closed folder. Her expression told me the situation had become more serious. I cannot repeat every detail while the investigation is active, she said, but Tessa described the sleepy drink without being prompted. She identified when it was given, how it made her feel, and what Zena told her would happen if she spoke to you. Did she mention the other incidents? She remembered waking up sick more than once. Her account is consistent with the dates and symptoms in the medical records. I closed my eyes. Part of me had still hoped that some misunderstanding could explain what I had found. That hope was gone. What happens to Zena now? Investigators will handle Zena. Your responsibility is to protect Tessa and avoid interfering with the case. As if summoned by her name, Zena appeared at the far end of the hallway. A nurse stopped her before she reached Tessa's room. I'm her stepmother, Zena said. I have every right to see her. The nurse calmly explained that visitation had been restricted. Zena looked past her and saw me. Kevin, tell her this is ridiculous. I stayed where I was. The hospital made the decision. Based on what you told them? Based on Tessa's medical condition. Zena lowered her voice. You're letting strangers turn our family into a crime scene. Our daughter was unconscious. Your daughter, she corrected bitterly. The nurse asked her to step back. Zena's expression changed when she realized no one expected me to overrule the restriction. Did Tessa say something about me? She asked. I remembered Joyce's instructions. You need to speak with the investigators. So she did. Zena tried to move around the nurse, but hospital security entered the corridor. For several seconds, she stood perfectly still, measuring the room and searching for someone she could persuade. Then she pointed at me. He travels constantly. I'm the one who takes care of that child. Joyce had heard everything. Mrs. Wood, she said, you need to leave the treatment area. This is a family disagreement. No, Joyce replied. This is an active child safety assessment. The words finally silenced her. Security escorted Zena to the elevator. She looked back once, not toward Tessa's room, but toward the folder in Joyce's hands. She was not asking whether Tessa was recovering. She was trying to determine what we could prove. After the elevator doors closed, Joyce turned to me. Do you have somewhere safe to take Tessa when she is discharged? The house belongs to me, but Zena has keys and access to the security system. Then the house is not secure yet. She told me to prepare a list of every way Zena could reach Tessa. Doors, garage codes, school authorization, medical contacts, shared accounts, relatives, and electronic devices. I wrote down each item. Can the agency issue a no-contact order? I asked. We can recommend restrictions and provide our findings, but you need a family attorney to request emergency protection from the court. Joyce gave me the name of Jennifer Moss, an attorney who specialized in child protection and high-conflict custody cases. Call her today, she said. Do not warn Zena first. Advance notice could create additional risk. I looked through the glass again. Tessa had added 2 figures in front of the house, holding hands beneath the yellow sun. For the first time since finding her on the floor, I understood that discovering the truth was only half my responsibility. The next step was building a barrier strong enough to ensure Zena could never reach her again. Jennifer Moss agreed to meet me that afternoon. Her office was only 12 minutes from the hospital, but walking through its door felt like crossing into a different life. 2 days earlier, I had believed I had a troubled marriage. Now I carried a folder documenting 7 medical events involving my daughter. Jennifer read everything without interrupting. She spent the longest time comparing my verified travel calendar with Tessa's medical history. Then she reviewed the toxicology results, the concealed ambulance visit, Joyce's safety assessment, and the notes from Tessa's interview. Has Zena attempted to contact Tessa? She asked. She tried to enter the treatment area this morning. Was she allowed inside? No. Good. Has she contacted you? I showed Jennifer the calls and messages. The most recent one read, You need to stop encouraging Tessa's behavior and let me handle her. Jennifer photographed the screen. Do not argue with her, she said. Every response creates another opportunity for her to manipulate the situation. I don't want her near Tessa again. Then we do this correctly. No threats, no private confrontation, and no attempt to frighten her away. We asked the court for emergency protection. Over the next 2 hours, Jennifer organized the evidence into a sequence a judge could understand quickly. The first known overdose, Zena's lie about my location. 6 additional medical events, repeated antihistamine exposure, my confirmed absences, Tessa's disclosure, and the hospital's determination that continued contact presented a safety risk. Nothing depended on my anger or interpretation. It depended on records created before Zena knew anyone was looking. Jennifer filed the emergency request that afternoon. At 4:16, Zena sent another message. I'm coming to the hospital tonight. You cannot keep my stepdaughter away from me. I showed it to Jennifer. She's creating evidence of urgency, she said. Reply, only that hospital staff are controlling visitation. I wrote, Tessa is resting. Please do not come unless the hospital authorizes your visit. Zena responded immediately. She is my daughter too, Kevin. You don't get to make this decision alone. The claim sounded different after she had repeatedly emphasized that Tessa was only her stepdaughter. The emergency hearing took place the next morning. Jennifer presented the documents while I answered only the judge's direct questions. Were you aware of any of these prior medical events? He asked. No, Your Honor. Did you authorize Zena to obtain treatment without informing you? No. Has Tessa expressed fear of returning home if Zena is present? Yes. The judge read the summary of Tessa's disclosure twice. Then he signed the order. Until further proceedings, Zena was prohibited from contacting Tessa directly or indirectly. She could not visit the hospital, approach her school, use another person to communicate with her, or return to the family residence. I lowered my head and exhaled. It did not feel like victory. It felt like permission to make my daughter's world safe. Outside the courtroom, Jennifer handed me a certified copy. "Follow this exactly," she said. "Change every access point. Notify the school and medical providers. If Zena violates the order, call law enforcement. Do not enforce it yourself." At 7:15 the next morning, I met a locksmith at home while Tessa remained under observation. We changed every exterior lock, reset the garage code, removed Zena's fingerprint from the front door system, and disabled her access to the security cameras and smart home controls. I checked every window and collected the spare keys she knew about. Then I called Tessa's school. I sent the certified order and removed Zena from the pickup list. The principal confirmed that staff would not release Tessa's schedule or allow Zena onto campus. I contacted the pediatrician, pharmacy, insurance provider, emergency contacts, and after-school program. Each received the same instruction. Zena was not authorized to obtain information, make decisions, collect medication, or contact Tessa through them. I also changed the passwords on Tessa's tablet and family accounts, so Zena could not send messages under another name. At 9:03 my phone rang. "Zena." I let it go to voicemail. "Kevin, enough," she said. "I'm coming home after lunch, and we are going to discuss this like adults." She still had not been served. She still believed she could walk through the front door, blame Tessa, and restore the version of the family she controlled. I forwarded the message to Jennifer. "Do not respond," she said. "The order is active. Let law enforcement handle the next contact." 20 minutes later, Joyce called. Investigators wanted to question Zena concerning suspected child endangerment and needed to know where she could be found. I knew exactly where she would be. Every Thursday at noon, Zena met the same 4 friends at Sullivan's. Image mattered more to her than almost anything, and that restaurant was where she displayed the life she wanted everyone to believe she had. I gave Joyce the location and ended the call. I did not need to stand in front of Zena when the consequences arrived. The evidence could walk through that door without me. At 11:38, Zena sent me a message from Sullivan's. "I'll be home around 2. We need to put this ridiculous hospital situation behind us." I read it twice. Tessa had been unconscious. Toxicology showed excessive diphenhydramine. A previous ambulance visit had been hidden from me, and 6 other medical events matched my business trips. Yet Zena still believed everything could be dismissed as ridiculous. At 11:56, Joyce called. "We're moving forward. Do you need me there?" "No, stay with Tessa." That was the answer I wanted. This was not a confrontation between an angry husband and his wife. It was an investigation supported by medical records, a child safety assessment, and a court order. At 12:14, my phone began vibrating. Zena called once, then again. A message appeared. "What did you do?" Another followed seconds later. "Call me now." I turned the phone face down. Tessa was coloring beside me. "Is that Zena?" she asked. "Yes." Her crayon stopped moving. "Is she coming here?" "No." "Are you sure?" I looked directly at her. "I'm sure." She studied my face before returning to her picture. At 12:21, Jennifer called. "The order has been served. Law enforcement is with her now." I closed my eyes. For 2 days, part of me had imagined watching Zena realize she could no longer talk her way out of what she had done. But the reason for everything we had built was sitting 8 feet behind me, drawing a yellow sun above a house. "What happens next?" I asked. "Investigators will handle that. Your job is Tessa." Joyce later explained what happened at Sullivan's. Zena was laughing with 4 friends when Joyce entered the restaurant with 2 Naperville police officers. At first, Zena smiled as though they had approached the wrong table. Then an officer asked, "Zena Wood?" "Yes. Is something wrong?" Joyce placed the protective order in front of her. "Effective immediately, you are prohibited from contacting Tessa Wood or returning to the family residence." The table fell silent. Zena scanned the first page and laughed without humor. "This is ridiculous." My husband is upset because his daughter got into allergy medicine. The court reviewed information raising serious concerns about Tessa's safety, Joyce said. Information from Kevin? The investigation includes medical records, prior emergency responses, toxicology results, and statements made by Tessa. Zena's expression changed at the word statements. She's 8. She gets confused. One officer asked her to stand. Why? We need you to come with us for questioning concerning suspected child endangerment. Zena lowered her voice and glanced at her friends. Can we discuss this somewhere private? Even then, her first concern was protecting her image. The officer repeated the instruction. Zena remained seated. You don't understand. Kevin travels constantly. I'm the one who actually takes care of that child. She turned toward the women at the table. Tell them. You know how difficult Tessa becomes when Kevin leaves. No one moved. According to Joyce, that was when Zena began losing control. Children make mistakes, she said. Tessa took medicine she knew she wasn't supposed to touch. The investigation will determine what happened, Joyce replied. Zena grabbed her purse. Then I'll call Kevin and straighten this out. The order prohibits indirect contact concerning Tessa as well. He's my husband. That does not override the order. By then, people at nearby tables were watching. Zena's voice grew sharper. Do you know who my husband is? The officer answered calmly. Yes, ma'am. His information is in the report. My name could not protect her because my evidence had helped expose her. When the officer told Zena she was being detained, she pulled her arm away. You're arresting me because an 8-year-old told a story? Turn around, please. Kevin did this. Turn around. The handcuffs closed around her wrists in the middle of the restaurant. One friend looked down at the table. Another moved Zena's purse away from an unfinished glass of wine. No one defended her or followed as the officers escorted her outside. At 12:41, Joyce called me. I stepped into the hospital hallway. It's done, she said. Zena is in custody. I leaned against the wall. I had expected those words to bring satisfaction. They didn't. Did she say anything? Most of it blamed you or Tessa. Of course. Joyce warned me not to contact Zena or discuss the investigation with Tessa beyond what she needed to feel safe. When I returned to the room, Tessa looked up immediately. Was that about Zena? Yes. Her shoulders tightened. I sat beside her. She cannot come here. She cannot return home, and she cannot contact you. For how long? Long enough for the adults protecting you to discover everything that happened. Tessa searched my face. So I don't have to drink the sleepy drink anymore? My throat tightened. Never again. She leaned against me without another word. That was when the arrest finally meant something, not because Zena had been humiliated or because handcuffs had replaced the perfect image she protected. It mattered because my daughter finally understood that the person who frightened her no longer controlled the door to her home. Tessa came home 2 days later. Before leaving the hospital, she asked me the same question 3 times. Zena really can't be there? Each time, I gave her the same answer. She won't be there. When we pulled into the driveway, Tessa remained in the passenger seat, staring at the house. I didn't rush her. The locks had been changed. The garage code was new, and Zena's access to the security system was gone. Her name had been removed from every school, medical, and emergency account connected to my daughter. Ready? I asked. Tessa nodded, but she held my hand tightly as we walked inside. She stopped in the hallway almost exactly where I had found her unconscious. I watched her face, afraid the memory would overwhelm her. Instead, she took a long breath. It smells different. Different how? She thought for a moment. Like when you open a window. Nothing had physically changed except the locks, but to Tessa, safety apparently had a smell. That evening, I ordered deep dish pizza from her favorite restaurant. We ate on the couch and watched a documentary about sea otters because she had decided they were the funniest animals in the world. Halfway through the movie, she asked, "Are you going away for work again?" "Not for a while." "Because of me?" "Because I need to be here." She looked down at her pizza. "I don't want you to lose your job." Then I understood how deeply Zena's threats had reached inside her. "Tessa, listen to me. My job is important, but you are more important. None of this happened because I traveled, and none of it happened because you were difficult. It happened because an adult made choices she was never allowed to make. So it isn't my fault? Not even 1%. She leaned against me. Later, her breathing became slow and steady. For a second, the sound frightened me. I touched her shoulder, and she opened one irritated eye. "Daddy, I'm sleeping." I almost laughed. I know. For months, sleep had meant something dangerous in our house. Now my daughter was simply tired after pizza and a movie. She was sleeping because she felt safe enough to close her eyes. I carried her upstairs and tucked her into bed. "You're staying home tonight?" she whispered. "I'm right downstairs. Promise? Promise?" The weeks that followed were not simple. Tessa began meeting with a child therapist. Some nights, she slept normally. Other nights, she checked the hallway twice and asked whether her bedroom door could be locked from the outside. I removed the old latch and let her watch me place it in the trash. I stopped expecting either of us to recover quickly. Healing was not another deal I could close before Friday afternoon. Investigators continued reviewing medical and pharmacy records while Jennifer handled the separation and court filings. I followed her advice and stayed away from Zena. I did not need revenge. I needed accountability, distance, and a daughter who no longer feared being alone in her own home. I reduced my travel schedule and arranged to handle more meetings remotely. Not because Tessa needed me watching her every second, but because I finally understood something I had missed while building a successful career. Providing a beautiful house was not the same as knowing what happened inside it when I was gone. Progress arrived through small moments. One Saturday morning, I found Tessa making pancakes. Batter covered the counter, and one pancake had burned black in the skillet. She looked at the mess, and I saw the old apology forming on her face. Then I took a bite of the burned pancake and said, "Needs more syrup." Tessa laughed. Months earlier, she would have begged me not to be angry. Now she laughed, because a mistake was allowed to remain only a mistake. That sound meant more to me than any courtroom result. One evening she asked whether Zena had gone to jail. I told her the adults responsible for the investigation were deciding what consequences were appropriate. "Do I have to forgive her?" she asked. "No one gets to demand that from you. Your job is to heal, not to make other people comfortable." Tessa considered my answer, then returned to her drawing. The house beneath the yellow sun appeared often, but gradually the windows became larger and the doors stood open. Months later, Tessa fell asleep beside me during another sea otter documentary. There was no sleepy drink and no fear that someone was waiting for me to leave, just my daughter breathing peacefully against my shoulder. I thought about the contracts I had negotiated and the warning I had given clients for years. The most dangerous part of an agreement was often hidden in the fine print. Somehow, I had forgotten to read the fine print of my own family. I could not change the months when I had failed to see what was happening, but I could make sure I never ignored the signs again. Tessa stirred and rested her head more comfortably against me. For the first time in a very long time, sleep in our house meant exactly what it was supposed to mean. My daughter was home, and she was safe.